not saying anything correctly to us, Sierra. 6th time now. Heading 170.
If a controller has to tell you 6 different ways a instruction of something that you need to do in order to comply, should you even be allowed to still be flying? Now, that's not to say that I'm perfect. I'll tell you, maybe about a week ago, I was in Chicago. I had been off for a couple weeks. I got in the plane, and Chicago's a pretty busy, fast-moving airport, and they had to give me the instructions twice. So is that crazy? I missed one of the taxiways. And Chicago's not a place that I fly a lot. So I missed one of the taxiways on the readback, and he said, no, it's blah, 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 blah. I forget what it was. But I said, oh, okay, cool, blah, 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 and that was it. That was the end of it, 2 times. 6 is a bit much. Here's what happened.
162 Whiskey Sierra to tower. Ground.
Page tower or page ground?
Page ground, please.
Okay, you have page ground. What is your request?
We're at Bravo Hangar with Alpha. Request flight following to X01 262 Whiskey Sierra experimental.
Okay, give me your call sign again and your intended altitude.
This pilot originally calls and he says he's looking for tower, and then he says ground, and that's not really a big deal. I mean, people make mistakes, and that's fine, and I don't think there's any caution at this point as far as if you're the controller. And then he says he wants flight following, which basically means I'm not going to file a flight plan and tell you the exact roads in the sky that I'm going to go to my destination, but I would like you, for air traffic control, to watch over my plan and just keep me out of trouble. That's basically how it is. Because when you fly in what's called the VFR, you're basically flying where you can go whichever way or however you want to get to your destination. When you fly IFR, like airline pilots do, if you ever ride on a plane as a passenger at an airline, the flight plan we're on is an IFR flight plan. There's specific roads that we're following, and there's specific rules that we're following, and that allows us to fly through clouds and things like that. Under these types of flight rules, you're not allowed to do that, but you also don't have to follow nearly as many rules. But in this case, you get air traffic control gives you some of the benefits, like keeps you advised if there's traffic around you or things like that. You can say, I want to fly from here to here with flight following, and if you wanted to, you could fly in a squiggly line all the way down to your destination. However, if you're flying on an airliner, you're flying under different flight rules, so you essentially have to follow these sky roads, which is fine, and air traffic control can give you shortcuts, but it's just 2 different rules that you have to fly under. So he's kind of getting the benefits of flying under an IFR without having to follow all those sky road rules. Now he says something else that you may not have heard before.
262 Whiskey Sierra experimental.
That term experimental is important to this story because there is a category pilot that I don't know I've ever really talked about called a sport pilot. On the FAA website, it says sport pilots are required to hold either a valid pilot medical certificate or a current and valid U.S. driver's license. I have no idea what a driver's license has anything to do with flying a plane. There's also some other things they don't have to do, like have a FAA medical, depending on the circumstances of how it all played out, but they don't have to do that. And there's a few other things, but it also limits them into the size of aircraft that they typically are able to fly. And usually, or in some cases, those aircraft are known as experimental or light sport. They're much smaller categories of planes. And this particular case, in my opinion, draws a lot of attention to what it takes in order to be one of these sport pilots. You're going to see why here in just a second.
262 Whiskey Sierra.
And your planned altitude?
Planned altitude is 8,000.
Okay, you're going at an IFR altitude, is that your plan?
No, I'll be VFR. I can go lower, doesn't matter.
Oh, the altitude is your discretion, sir, but 8,000 is an IFR altitude.
Okay, let's make it 5,000.
VFR needs to be with a 5 after it, sir. 3,500, 4,500, 5,500, 6,500, 7,500, any altitude you want, but it's a 500 altitude.
Very good. 5,500 requested.
262 Whiskey Sierra after departure, maintain VFR. Pattern below 2,000. Fort Myers departure 126.8, squawk 4646.
VFR at 2,000 or below, squawking 4646.
Did you get the departure frequency?
No, I didn't. Is it 126.8?
Sir, that's the departure frequency. Do you have ATIS information alpha?
Information alpha, thank you.
Asking you if you have it. Do you have it?
Yes, I do. With alpha.
Okay, in fairness to this guy, he did, when he checked in initially, he mentioned that he had alpha.
We're We're at Bravo Hangar with Alpha.
But he's messed up so many different things here that I understand from this controller's perspective to want to clarify exactly what this guy has, because him starting off saying that he wanted 8,000 and then saying, oh, not 8,000, how about 5,000, would be sending off alarm bells for me. Like, how are you able to fly, but you don't know that 8,000 and 5,000 are IFR altitudes? And that leads me to believe that he probably doesn't even know about this, which is also a little bit alarming. They've set it up so that way they have westbound and eastbound traffics are designated at even and odd numbers just to keep additional separation. And that's why when you're flying somewhere and let's say you're at 34,000 feet and you're on your normal airliner in the back watching the screen, and then you feel the plane climb up, they go from 34 to 36 or 36 to 38. You're going in a certain direction, and so you go up every 2,000 feet when your plane is able to go up there because of the weight of the aircraft. So that's how that is in the IFR flight rules, and that is also how it is when you're doing VFR flying, except you're at a 500-foot altitude. So the difference there is something that it helps keep separation and makes it safe for everybody. There is this other theory called like the big sky theory or something like that, which is like, hey, it's such a huge sky, the likelihood of hitting another plane is like super small, but why have that risk? So they just make it like, hey, you're going to go at 500 feet. The IFR planes are going to go at levels of 1,000. If you're going west or if you're going east, you're going to have your own kind of section. So the likelihood of you having a head-on collision, because if a plane is coming right at you, it'd be very easy to not see it until it got very close, especially if you're going really fast, which you won't be in a plane like what he's flying, but it doesn't matter. Now, I will say, as a 747 pilot, I do get some benefits of the doubts. Like if I had said this,
Information Alpha, thank you.
but had been nailing everything else in the communication that was going back and forth with air traffic control, they probably wouldn't have questioned me. But what's going on is there's so many different things that this guy's saying that is sending off alert signals or red flags or however you want to call it. If I was a controller, I'd be really, really cautious about everything that I'm now saying with this guy, because it's sounding like there's a very high risk that this guy's going to do something and make some type of major mistake. And what's going to happen then is the FAA is going to circle back around and look at everything in his entire interaction of that entire flight. So if I'm in the office or in the tower or wherever I'm at talking with this guy, I'm thinking, okay, I want to cover all my bases. There are times that I've checked in and I've messed up stuff. Things that they won't let you mess up, as even as a 747 pilot, is a holding short instruction. That they will never let you mess up. But if you garble some taxiway, or you just check in and say 5,000 alpha, something like that, meaning I'm at 5,000 feet, I got information alpha, let's say you're coming into an airport, they're going to let you slide with some things like that. Whereas if you're messing everything up and you're saying something like, okay, alpha, they're going to go, no, I need you to tell me that that is the weather that you have on this recorded line with your call sign, so that way there's no question when you do something ridiculous that I'm on the hook.
Whiskey Sierra, Roger, advisory check.
I don't understand. Can I go to runway 5 or what?
Sir, advise me when you are ready to taxi.
Very good. Ready to taxi, sir.
Number 262 Whiskey Sierra, runway 5. Taxi westbound on the ramp, join Alpha.
Going to runway 5 on Alpha taxiway.
At this airport, when you're ready for departure, you just call the tower on the tower frequency.
262 Whiskey Sierra, ready for departure, runway 5.
262 Whiskey Sierra, fly runway heading, runway 5, clear for takeoff.
262 Whiskey Sierra, runway heading.
I don't know what the rules are with air traffic control and what they can and can't do, and I'm not saying that I want to give away more of my rights or power over to the FAA or the air traffic controllers, but there are situations where I've heard in some of these audios that I've listened to that I would think, if I was a controller, that I would like the power to say like, dude, I don't know that you're safe to go fly. Like you don't know about the different altitudes. You don't know about how to taxi. You don't know how to talk on the radio. You're messing up the readbacks, the frequency. Like there's so many things and you haven't even left the ground yet. Like I don't know if I would want to let you even go fly. Now, I don't know if they can just say like, I'm sure there's circumstances like the guy sounds drunk or on drugs or whatever that they could say like, hey, no, and get somebody out there. I don't know what it is in this situation. Like, hey, you don't sound competent as a pilot, so I don't want to let you fly. Like, is that a thing that the controllers can do? Honestly, I don't know. But at this stage, if I'm them, I'd be thinking like, we're out here in South or West Florida. I don't know if I want to let you get up in the air. Obviously, they let them fly and watch what happens.
2 Whiskey Sierra, contact Fort Myers departure on 126.8. Whiskey Sierra, contact Fort Myers departure.
262 Whiskey Sierra from Mars departure, are you up?
262 Whiskey Sierra.
262 Whiskey Sierra, radar contact. From right heading on 170 by kick line, maintain VFR 2,500.
Continue my climb to, say again.
262 Whiskey Sierra, maintain VFR 2,000.
Maintain 2,500. Course is now what?
262 Whiskey Sierra, from right heading on 170, maintain VFR 2,500, that should get you south of RSW.
120, stay at 2,500.
Number 262 is here. I don't have time to talk to you 4 times per control instruction because there's a lot going on. Please listen up. Fly heading 170, maintain VFR 2,500, over.
17, stay at 2,500.
Now, at the start of this section here, the tower was calling him and saying like, hey, are you there? Like, go over to tower. There are some places in the world, I don't think this area, I haven't seen it in the US to be honest with you, but there are some places in the world that they will say, contact departure when airborne, something like that, meaning air traffic control isn't going to hand you off like they typically do, that controller was trying to do. He was trying to contact them to hand them off. There are some places in the world that you won't get that. I wish they would just have like a standard for everywhere for a lot of different things, but I'm not in control of the entire world of aviation. So what's happening is that controller trying to reach out to him like to get a hold of him to send him to a departure, and this guy's already flipped over to departure. I don't know why he did that. But the controller wasn't expecting him to do that, and that's why he kept calling him on the radio like this.
2 Whiskey Sierra, contact Fort Myers departure on 126.8. Whiskey Sierra, contact Fort Myers departure.
Now, it is possible for that tower controller to speak to the departure controller and just verify that they got the handoff. There have been times that I've called tower because I think they've forgotten about me. Like, hey, do you want us to go to departure? And I don't know, they went on like a coffee break. Maybe I was like the last plane in or out for the next 30 minutes and they went out for a coffee break. I don't know. But I've tried that once or twice and then they don't respond and we just flip over to the departure frequency. So I've done that before. But in this particular case, it's all stacking up, right? There's like a bunch of little things. There's nothing like grossly majorly wrong that he's doing, but it's like a lot of little things that you're starting to go like, hey, something's wrong here. Now this part here where he kept not hearing the full clearance.
262 Whiskey Sierra, radar contact. From right heading on 170 by kick line, maintain VFR 2,500.
Continue my climb to, say again.
I will be the first to tell you, just like I said at the beginning of this video, I have messed up clearances for sure. And while this guy probably has me beat in age, I'm guessing I have a little bit more flight time than he does. So messing up a flight clearance, again, 1 time, no big deal. 3 times, 4 times, it starts to become a problem. And that is why I always use noise canceling headphones that I have since flight school. To me, I know that I'm not that smart, so I'd rather have to hear it 2 times than hear it 4 times or more, so that I can get the clearance that they want me to get. If I have to listen to the noise of the engines or what other thing is going on, like for me, I'm dealing with accents and people that have very strong accents in certain parts of the world. So I'm really having to very clearly hear what they're telling me. So I want to hear it as closely as I can possibly hear it clearly the first time. So that way, if I need to hear it a second time, there's no doubt. I have seen pilots, including 747 pilots, that use what we call the ship's headsets, which are headsets that are on the plane, meaning like if you don't own one, at this stage, I don't know why you wouldn't, but there are guys that I've flown with, especially captains, that will fly with the ship's headsets, and they have the volume cranked all the way up to max, and it is so loud, but that's how they want to fly. I was like, okay, cool, you do you, bro. I would rather just have wasted money on a headset than be this guy.
Continue my climb to, say again.
And the controller is getting so annoyed about it that he says something that I don't think I've ever really heard before when he said this.
2,500, over.
Now you know the controller's getting irritated when they do something like that, but then this video starts to take a really downward turn in this next part.
I need a call sign with a control instruction, please. 2 Whiskey Sierra, verify. 170 heading, 2,500.
262 Whiskey Sierra, 2500 at 17.
All right, you're not saying anything correctly, 2 Whiskey Sierra. 6th time now. Heading 170.
Heading is 170, Whiskey Sierra, 262 Whiskey Sierra.
Number 2 Whiskey Sierra, your altitude also indicates 2,900 and you're restricted to 2,500.
I'm pulling back the car and going down to 2,500.
Number 2 Whiskey Sierra, please use your call sign when you give me the altitude readback. Number 2 Whiskey Sierra, I need your call sign when you read back the altitude. Verify, maintain 2,500.
I'm at 2,500, 262 Whiskey Sierra, 170.
Thank you.
1037, you said there at your 11 o'clock at 1,500 feet. No.
Traffic, 262 Whiskey. Mayday, mayday.
So as you heard earlier, the guy was assigned 2,500 feet, and we talked about earlier that 3,000 feet would technically be an IFR altitude. I don't know why you'd fly that low, but technically I guess you could be. But he's now at 2,900 feet, which means that hypothetically, a guy could be at 3,000 feet on an IFR flight plan, and a small general aviation aircraft might be doing that, so it's not unreasonable. You're not typically going to get an airliner that's at that altitude, but somebody could be at 3,000 feet. Now, when you're flying IFR, I say this delicately, you can pay less attention to some degree, meaning you could be in the clouds, so you can't see outside. So you could be having a conversation and not really focused on looking outside so much. Not saying that that's safe or that you should do that, but hypothetically, you could be IFR, you could be at 3,000 feet and looking at the person next to you and not really paying too much attention outside because you're in the clouds, so you're not going to see something until it gets to you anyways. Not a great feeling, but just being clear. This guy's at 2,900, so hypothetically, this was a clear day, right? But here's just the risk level of it. He's at 2,900 feet, so he's 100 feet away from another plane. Hypothetically, if there was a guy that was flying IFR at 3,000 feet, and that guy at 3,000 feet may not even be paying attention, and clearly this guy isn't paying attention either. When I was in flight school, all the instructors, in case they ever watch this video, I guarantee will tell you I was all over the place. But 60, 70, 80 feet off is kind of like where I seesawed. I was supposed to be at 2,500, I'd be at 2,580, and then I'd be at like 2,460, and I'd seesaw back and forth between those. I'm not saying that that's acceptable, but I'm just saying that's where I was when I was a new pilot. Between juggling everything else, talking on the radios, and holding that altitude perfectly on there, I wasn't able to do that. But that's not nearly as big of a deal as 400 feet. You're like massively off. Typically in the airlines, like if you hit over 300, depends on the airlines and what's causing the thing, but over 300, you have to do a report on it. So this guy's 400. And the times that we've had that, like off by 300 feet at the airlines, in my experience, one, we had severe turbulence and we were getting just slammed all over the place. And there's really not much you can do. I mean, it was flying over the ocean. It was a hot mess. It's a story for another day, but we were getting slammed so hard that it was actually reporting on our plane. It was giving us this indication of like you're off your altitude because we were off by so much. So, but there's nothing you can do about that. This guy obviously is 400 feet off and clueless to what's going on, which is really, really dangerous. That is so far one of the most dangerous things. His readbacks and not being able to read things back and messing up the clearances and all that stuff, okay, that's a problem. But now, like I talked about earlier, now what you're seeing is a manifestation of the lack of skill that has gotten him into a situation where he could be creating a problem for other people. That's major. So now at the end of this audio before the Mayday call, the pilot was actually descending into his airport and the controller was reporting traffic to him here.
1037, you said there at your 11 o'clock at 1,500 feet. No.
That's one of the great things about the flight following. Now, air traffic control always has the right to say, hey, we're too busy. We can't do flight following with you. They have that right. Sometimes people will go anyway. Sometimes people will say like, okay, and I'll just wait 20 minutes. Because having that flight following is an awesome courtesy that air traffic control will give you if they have the capacity to do it. And they will do things like this. Tell you, hey, you're descending and there's a plane that is not being flight followed, meaning they're not talking with air traffic control, but they're at 1,500 feet and you're coming out at 2,500 feet. Just keep an eye out for them. They're at 11 o'clock and they're 1,000 feet below you. So that gives you some better situational awareness of what's going on, which I think is an awesome thing that the FAA and the air traffic control does for GA pilots. And as that pilot responds, you can actually hear the anxiety of his voice goes up right before the Mayday call. So this category of sport pilot came out in 2004, and they did it as a way to make aviation available to more people. The problem is, with a sport pilot license, they have significantly reduced standards, and that's why they limit them to some of these smaller aircrafts like this. And according to some reports I read on this guy, the guy was 68 and had never had an FAA flight medical. In the report I read, it said he'd also been diagnosed with hypertension, high cholesterol, obstructive sleep apnea, neurogenic bladder, cataracts, peripheral neuropathy, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. I honestly don't even know what half of those things mean, but I know they're not good things, especially when you're putting someone in an aircraft and in the sky and in and around my area where I'm trying to operate and do work of safely getting you the package that you just ordered or your loved one home if they're flying on a NFL team or military charter that when we fly people. I don't want someone that has all these different issues and talks like that on the radio anywhere in my vicinity. That's just my personal preference. So in this same report, it appears that he ended up overloading his wings and snapping one of them, and that caused him to crash. And amazingly, there was nobody beneath him when all this took place, but that is where the issues arise for me. If you decide that you want to build a house out of hay in the middle of a forest, or hay bales, or whatever you want in the middle of a forest away from me, and then you want to not put electricity in your house, but you want to use candles for everything, and then you want to use like a big pile of firewood in the middle of your house in order to heat your house that's built out of hay, okay, cool, do you, bro. But if you want to build this house of straw and hay bales and attach it or build it on top of my house, well, that's a problem for me because now your poor judgment is having a threat onto me, my aircraft, the people on my plane. So it's your poor judgment is now impacting me because you've built this hay house on top of my house. You decided that you feel it's safe to fly based off of your judgment, and clearly you're not the best judgment here with all of these physiological issues that you have going on, because things like sleep apnea is a term that I am familiar with. It means you're tired, and you can imagine the type of flying that I do. We get a lot of training on sleep and the impacts of it, and when you're really tired, it's similar to making poor decisions like you're drunk. And that's why I'm really militant with myself and my airline schedulers. If I'm not sleeping, like the schedule is not working for me, I have no problem calling them and saying, and I do it ahead of time, right? Like there are pilots that in different airlines that will do things where they feel like they want to like get the schedulers, and so they'll just wait to the last minute and go like, I'm too tired. Like there's times where I get the schedule and I know a day in advance, like there's no way I can do that schedule. And so I tell them ahead of time and I go, hey, look, there's no way that I'm going to be able to sleep and then do that flight and then do this next flight. Like that, there's no way that's going to happen. Sometimes they're able to change me and put me on an earlier flight or a later flight or a different flight, so that way I can be rested and do it. And I do that because, to me, there's a huge responsibility you have to your crew, to your passengers, and that's how most pilots feel. This person, in my opinion, is not feeling that way. They want to go flying, so they're going and flying, and clearly aren't at a skill level that should allow them to be up and around the airspace over people's head or near other people's aircraft, because again, his poor judgment could impact somebody else. Like if he flies in front of my plane, or let's say I'm coming into land and he came out onto the runway, there's a good chance that my 747 would obviously crush a small plane, don't get me wrong, but it could also result in there being an accident. That's potentially the end of my career or the end of my life because someone else's incompetency or poor judgment. Now, the question I'm going to pose to you is, should there be a program like this sport pilot program, which has reduced standards that you have to have as far as a medical, meaning you're able to go with a driver's license, and reduced standards of what you needed to have in order to be going and flying? Should that be an acceptable standard to allow someone to get up into the air? Well, if they ever call me in front of Congress, I keep seeing these people going and testifying, and they put me under oath and they want me to testify regarding aviation safety, and I am no longer working for my airline because, in my opinion, I am a representative of my airline at all times. Kind of like I played sports in high school, for example, and every time after every game when we would go somewhere, like on an away game, we'd go somewhere and we'd pile up and our coach would say, hey, before we go into this place to go eat, remember, you are a representative of our school. and you represent us, so how you act is going to represent how we are as a school. Made it real clear, like, don't be stupid as you go into this McDonald's or wherever we were going to go eat. And so that's how I feel working at this airline. So I would go and testify and give my honest opinion, and there's going to be a lot of people that would not like to hear what I would have to say. But until that day comes where I'm no longer working as an employee at my airline, then I have to respect the fact that they allow me to do really cool things and to fly really gorgeous planes like, really gorgeous planes like this. Then I have to respect that I am a representative of my airline and I will keep my opinions to myself. But that doesn't mean you and the FAA that is watching this have to do that. They're the people that are in charge of making those types of decisions. You, because you are a citizen, if you are in the United States, you are a citizen that has safety as a top priority, or should, when it comes to aviation. So you can speak to your people, and if you work at the FAA, well, you're in charge of all these things. I'm just a button pusher on a plane, so I'm just not going to voice my opinion. But if the day ever comes that I get called in front of Congress, that would be kind of wild. I would probably make a vlog about that, because a guy from a small little town of 1,000 people ended up flying a 747 and then making it into Congress. I don't know. I just think that would be kind of wild. But until that day comes, I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.